Don't leave hundreds of thousands or even $1 million on the table. Most retirees, they're asking us one question: do I have enough? And that might not be the right question to ask. We want to be asking, do I have a plan? How am I going to turn my assets into income that'll sustain my lifestyle? And how am I going to do that in a tax efficient manner that lowers the risk through my retirement? I'm Parker at Pellegrini Financial. And the other day I was working on a client plan and I wanted to share with you how one simple change was able to add over $1 million in after-tax value while increasing their overall security. Retirement planning is not just investment performance projections. What we're trying to look at is all of the different factors that come into play. We have taxation, we have government benefits like Canada Pension Plan and Old Age Security. We have other things like depending on if you've saved in an RRSP or a RRIF, whether you have locked in funds, maybe you have a corporation. Pulling funds from different places have different taxation results and they have different restrictions. Part of planning process is to look at what those restrictions are, and the way that we view them is we view them as levers, and we want to make sure that we know what your overarching retirement goal is, what your lifestyle expenses are going to be, and then we go through this process with you where we actually move those levers to find the most efficient way for you to retire with the least risk. The goal in these projections is, or these models, is not to say this is what will happen. Nobody knows. We don't have a crystal ball, nor do you. But as time goes by, every one of those little decisions adds up to tell a retirement story. And when we're doing this, we want to project as much as we can into the future so that you have an idea as those decision points come up. Retirement's not just a single decision. It's not just a couple of guys in a coffee shop saying, oh, this is what I did. This is 30 or 40 years worth of planning. And you'll see that as we walk through this, that there's a big difference in outcomes depending on how you plan. Now, you only get one retirement. We've been working with retirees for years, and we see those decisions as they arise. We can help you walk through that, and by going through this modeling, we can get to the same page so that we are walking that path together and you can feel confident in how it's going to turn out. Now, before we step into this, I do want to just highlight that when we're doing our projections, we're going out to age 100. Because if you're a healthy 65-year-old couple, there's a 10% chance that you're going to make it past 100. Now, when we're doing these projections, we're using this through an income security lens. Okay, we want you to have confidence in the plan that we come up with. And so what we do is we actually use 4% investment return, 2% inflation return. Now you might be thinking that 2% inflation's been higher than that lately, and certainly it has been. But when we look through the long term, it's that relationship between the two that matters. And so that 4% minus a 2% inflation is actually 2% real rate of return. And we feel comfortable when we're looking for your income security picture that that's a conservative approach. Now we're going to look at this and I'm going to show you what we're looking at when we do these projections. Now we're going to start with this baseline scenario. What's going to happen is Clark's going to work a couple more years, Ellen for one more year, and then once they retire, they're going to take Canada Pension Plan. They're going to start their RRIF at age 65, and they're going to start Old Age Security at 65, which is as soon as they're able. A lot of retirees, that's their standard plan. That's their starting point. That's the baseline. About $4 million of investable assets, 1.2 million in their house. Now, when they go to spend, they're looking to spend 120,000 a year. That's about 10,000 a month, and we want to make sure that that's their actual spend. When we have assets across many different accounts, we have RRIFs or RSPs, we have maybe a pension or a LIF, we have non-registered accounts, tax-free accounts. We want to make sure that we can pull all those levers to get you the best after-tax result. So digging into the financial assets that Clark and Ellen have, we're going to have this as our starting point. We have non-registered account, or open money as we like to call it, because there's no restrictions. It's not subject to contribution limits or amounts that you must or can't pull out. So we have a personal open account for Clark of $500,000. There's a little bit of embedded gains there. We have a tax-free savings account, an RSP, and then a joint open account. As you can see, we have $1.2 million house for Clark and Ellen. And like I said earlier, 0% appreciation on that. We just want to make sure that that asset's reflected. Now, as you can see for Ellen, we have an RSP of $350,000, that joint account again, tax-free savings assets of $180,000, and her personal open of $500,000. Clark, he contributed to Canada Pension Plan heavily through his career. So we have him shown at 90% contribution through time, lived in Canada his whole life, so he has old age security. Ellen, similar, she didn't contribute quite as much, but with child rearing provisions, she's able to get about 75% of her Canada Pension Plan, and she's been here her whole life and again has full old age security. Now what you'll notice here is that if we take Canada Pension Plan at 63, it actually gets derated, and so 75% is only 64%, and that's because when you take it early there's a penalty. You'll also notice later that if you defer it and take it later, you actually get a bonus. And that's going to be important. Now we're going to step into the details of Clark's situation on this, and we're going to see that he's got those couple years left working. And we're going to see him make maximum RSP contributions, right? And the rest is going to be invested throughout his TFSA, his non-registered accounts, both personal and joint. As we go through time, we're going to have a baseline expectation that he's going to fully fund his tax-free savings account. So you can see here that we have that tax-free savings account contribution all the way through time, and there's an assumption that those limits go up as the years go by. Now what we're going to start with now is this cash outflow chart, and you can see on it that it has expenses through time. There's a couple of high income years to start while our couple, Clark and Ellen, finish working. But as they get into retirement, you can see that we have that expense inflated through time. And so what that means is that every year things get more expensive. You can see that on this chart. It's not always the one that we focus on. We'll get to the cash inflow chart. What we really like about this is it shows you how each of those decisions we make, what levers we're pulling, how they impact things year in, year out. And so you can see here that we have old age security, we have Canada Pension Plan, we have RSP or RRIF income, that could also be a pension, non-registered income, and then what I really like as a guidepost is this tax line, because what it does is it highlights how stable that tax bill is through time, and we don't see any big spikes, and those spikes, they represent overpaying taxes usually. Some big event that might be able to be smoothed out. And so in this one, it's nice and low and level through retirement, and that's what we like to see. Their situation, they're starting with about $4 million in investable assets. They have a house, $1.2 million. We're not going to worry too much about that. That one's at the bottom here. We're not even going to inflate it through time. And that's typically because you're not looking to sell your house. You're looking to live in your house. Okay? So if we look past that and look at the rest of the assets, you can see that the tax-free savings account starts out on the left being a small portion of the overall assets. But through retirement, we're going to continually invest in that. And by the end, a large portion of the estate's going to be tax-free. We've gone over Clark and Ellen's baseline scenario. But what if they defer Canada Pension Plan and old age security? What if they change the way that they pull from their retirement assets? Let's have a look. Now, if we're going to defer Canada Pension Plan and old age security, we're not getting that check from the government. But what are we getting in return? You'll see here that by deferring to age 70, Clark will actually get 127% of the baseline payout. You'll notice that the same bonus occurs on his old age security. He gets 136% of the maximum by doing his deferral. For Ellen, by deferring to 70, she bumps her CPP up as well. And so we see that 75% turn into 106% of the maximum. And for the old age security, she gets that 136% bump as well. That's going to be important later on. As inflation starts to build, you have that government provided guaranteed income that's inflation adjusted. Now let's jump into that cash inflow chart, the one where I said that you can see how those levers affect things. Now what we're looking at here, you'll notice the old age security doesn't start until 70 for each of them. Canada Pension Plan. But if you compare this to the other picture, where they started earlier, you'll see that these two bars are a much bigger portion of the overall income from 70 onwards. And that's going to be important. The other thing that you'll notice is that the RRIF income starts earlier, and what we can do is we can actually bring that in what we like to call that window of opportunity, where you're not receiving Canada Pension Plan and you're not receiving old age security, and that gives you a huge base of income that can flow through in that first tax bracket. That's going to be hugely important for minimizing taxes now and ongoing. Because remember, those RRIF accounts, you put that money in and you got a tax advantage at the time, and then it has to come out and be taxed. And if we can get that taxed in that first bracket, that lowest bracket, then you're not just deferring tax, you're saving tax. When we look at these two, we have our baseline scenario and our window of opportunity scenario. Okay? Spending's the same through both of these. So what we've changed is the order that we're taking from our assets. We're moving those things around. Retirement looks the exact same in both cases. And what we're seeing here is that as we look at that window of opportunity, you do pay more in tax through life. You do get more retirement benefits from the government through time. You might even end up paying some old age security clawback. Now that sounds like a dirty word to most retirees, but when you're paying that clawback, it's because you have higher income. And you'll see that the net effect in this example is that financial assets have been able to grow through more years with that offset from government income. And the net result is over $1 million more in your estate after tax. Now, this is a different way to see that expenses are the same. You're spending the same money through your retirement. Okay? That's what we want. We want to make this on the financial side so that you don't have to worry about it. As we go through, tax rates, yes, they'll be different through time. That's part of the plan. This is where it really shows. These government benefits, by deferring, you're getting less early and you're getting more later. And that matters. Look at the difference here. We're talking about 163,000 of retirement income versus 98,000. That's 65,000 year in, year out, government guaranteed, inflation adjusted. That's why it matters. That $65,000 year in, year out, that's money that you otherwise wouldn't have even seen. For CPP, the fact of the matter is that it is a government-backed program. It is funded by your working years. And when you are at the end of your working career looking to draw on it, it will be there. And because of that value, it is worth a little bit less than the maximized returns that you could get investing in a growth portfolio. Because it's going to be there, it's government backed, it's inflation adjusted, you can rely on it as an important leg of the stool. As you see in these examples, there is no silver bullet. It's not going to form your full retirement, but it is going to form an important risk protection feature that you can't get anywhere else. As with any strategy, there's going to be trade-offs. This really shows that there is a point in time where deferring government benefits leaves your estate worse off. This helps highlight that crossover point, if we look, you're talking late 70s. If you live longer than that, then it's a net benefit. And if you live way longer than that, if you're one of those lucky 10%, then the benefit could add up to $1 million. The important part is that this didn't involve you changing your spending. This didn't involve you getting more investment return. These were some easy decisions to make that can change your retirement outcome materially. The important thing is that these results are not because of chasing investment returns or taking on more risk. It came from tax efficiency. It came from planning and using the CPP and old age security deferral to your advantage. Retirement planning is not a single decision. It is a series of decisions that are all part of a plan, and they're made through time as the world turns. The years from retirement to age 72 represent a huge opportunity window, and we want to make sure that we take advantage of that. Those low tax rates, the fact that Canada Pension Plan and Old Age Security are being deferred and growing while you're using up the low tax brackets with your registered money, that's the opportunity window we're talking. We want to build a system that supports your lifestyle, that supports your spending, and most of all, leaves you confident in making your financial decisions as you age. We want to protect you later in life. We want to avoid stressful decisions as time goes by. We want to minimize unnecessary taxes and make sure that both spouses feel confident in their financial future as they go through retirement. Now, this is one example, and a different mix of assets would have different results, right? They started with $4 million across their different accounts, and they ended up over $1 million better off through planning decisions. But you have that different mix, and that coffee shop planning, that's where you could really be led astray, because someone else's situation isn't your situation. The difference between a good retirement and a stressful one often comes down to decisions that are otherwise invisible unless someone models them properly. I'm Parker at Pellegrini Financial, and if you have a scenario that you're wondering about, leave a comment below. Maybe it's one I can do next.